Welcome in everybody to another A2D interview special. That's what we're going to start calling it. It's an interview series. So we've been having a bunch of them, and we have a new special guest on with us today. All the Phillies faithful will remember him, and most of baseball, if not all of baseball, should remember him. And that's Pat Combs joins us today on A2D Radio. We are brought to you by our doc, Make Him Yours. That's Dr. Paul Vidal, Specialized Physical Therapy, LLC, Burlington, Cherry Hill, Princeton locations. Find them on the web, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Tom Arnone, Greg Milakovic, Steve Reichel, and our special guest, Pat Combs, joins us today. We're going to talk a little Bryce Harper, Blake Snell takes, baseball when empty stadiums, and our poll question brought to you by Ambuck Services, AMBUCK Services.com. 20% off. Telling the boys from A2D Radio sent you for all your gutters, gutter guards, gutter needs, deck restoration. They handle everything outside, so no inside contact right now. 20% off. Telling the boys from A2D Radio sent you. Will Aaron Noel return to his 2018 form? Agree or disagree? Let us know. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and everywhere you guys get your podcasts, we're there as well. Pat, thanks for joining us and taking time out of your day to join us today. First of all, before we get into all the questions, what are you up to nowadays?
Well, fellas, thanks for having me on. What a pleasure to be with you guys today. And yeah, man, it's I guess I call myself a jack of all trades, master of none, because I do a lot of stuff. I don't know if I do a lot of them well, but I've still got a financial management company that we work with. My son actually has stepped in, runs the day-to-day on that piece, and is doing a great job for us. And it's really freed me up to do more consulting work, mainly in leadership development, performance enhancement side of business, as well as with sports. We still do some draft analysis with some major league teams and some NFL teams. Player development work, but and then on the side I do a little Fox broadcasting with college baseball. So it's a little bit of a lot of things, but I'm having a blast, man. It's a great time to be alive, and I got a great family and 3 sons and a beautiful wife, and we're just having a great time, man.
Awesome. So the Fox college broadcasting, how are you enjoying that? And what was it like this past year not being able to do it?
Yeah, I love it. It was something I was asked to do as really kind of a fill-in about 8-9 years ago. A buddy of mine called, who was a play-by-play guy with Fox Sports, and said, "Hey, I've got the Oklahoma State baseball game, the Bedlam game, and I need somebody to do color. You got any names?" And I said, "Well, let me give it some thought." And he called me back about 2 minutes later, says, "Well, how about you?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm not a broadcaster." But he said, "No, come on, man. We'll do it. It'll be fun. We'll just talk baseball." And I got into it. And right after that game was over, Fox called me and said, "Hey, we want to offer you a national job and do our color analyst job for national ball games." So it's been a blast. It's been great. I mean, I'll tell you, Tom, it's been a really tough time and in baseball, obviously with the game not being played, but talking to these college kids, especially these guys that were going into their junior, senior years that were looking for something at the next level, pro ball, or at least to finish up their senior year and have a good time doing it. That's been the saddest part of this, is watching those guys not have a season. Now, the good news is the NCAA has come back and allowed seniors who want to come back for their 5th year. They've given that extra year. So that's going to be good for those guys. But man, what a commotion this has caused with even Major League Baseball now, with the draft being moved to 5 rounds, and it's just the reverberations on down all through to the youth game. It's being felt obviously nationwide. So what a crazy time to live in right now.
Yeah, it really is, and you just try to keep telling all the kids, because so many are affected by it at so many different levels, from AAU ball up to high school ball, college ball, and obviously we know the pros. And trying to keep telling kids, like, to keep them working and keep them focused that it's not forever. It's a speed bump, and to continue to work. And I think it's easier for older guys to understand that, but definitely for the youth sports in the world, it's tough for them to get it that it's not forever. But I think the NCAA did a great job allowing that 5th year for guys that weren't ready to make the jump, especially in Major League Baseball shortening the draft. But the real question, I think, comes with the kids that are going into their freshman year, sort of the direction that they go, and sort of what you think, some ideas for these kids that are going to these big-time Division I schools that are now coming in as young freshmen when you have 5th-year seniors. What do you suggest to some of them kids? Would you suggest maybe going, the JUCO route, community college route? or, hey, go there, get your work in, get on campus and get working?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, man, I think it's absolutely the right question for those young players, especially like you talked about those freshmen coming in. Because, look, the reset affects, I think, those guys even more so. Look, the senior guys coming back to college baseball, they know they've pretty much got a position if they've been starting, right? So it's just that push down all the way to the bottom from the junior sophomores down to the freshmen coming in thinking they were taking a spot of a senior or junior that was draft eligible. And now those guys may not even have a chance to play their freshman year. So to answer your question on what should they do, I think every case is going to be an individual decision. And it's really going to, I think, come down to, do you want to go to school, start your education at a 4-year school, at least get that moving in the right way? Because even if you go to junior college, look at the amount of players that they're going to have with the push down, right? So you're going to be going into a JC, probably competing against 60, 70 ball players. I know in Texas, that's the way it is. Junior college teams are really good down here. The talent is incredible. In fact, some of the JCs will have more players drafted than some of the D1 schools. Right. So I think it's going to affect everybody. I think every player is going to have to make that individual decision about what's more important to them their first year, because there's a good chance a lot of these freshmen aren't going to play and will get redshirted. And so the whole system just got backed up.
Yeah, it definitely did. Well, let's get into our poll question, because I think that that's the main topic in hand. So we want your thoughts on it, Pat. Will Aaron Nola return to his 2018 form? Do you agree or disagree?
I would agree. I think Nola is a pitcher. When I first saw him coming onto the scene, he reminded me so much of Greg Maddux. And I know that comparison's been made a lot. But, man, the kid knows how to pitch. And I think he's got a tremendously long career ahead of him. Whenever a player has an off year like he did last year, and I say off year, he just didn't pitch as well as the expectations were, set out. There's just that extra motivation to come back and outperform, from the previous season. And I think that's what you're going to see from Nola. He has the talent. He's got the motivation now, even a greater amount. And the guy knows what he's doing. So I expect better things from him this year. I think he's going to be a top-notch quality pitcher. Does he get back to where he's considered a number one starter? I don't know. I've always, when he hit the scene, I always thought he was going to be a really solid number 2, number 3 type guy. So, but we'll see. Look, I think he's definitely going to come back with a lot more motivation to correct that year.
Yeah, I think the big thing, and I think we've seen it last year a little bit, I think the addition of Brian Price will really help it out, is it's just sometimes that different voice. That different voice sort of gets you back on track. And we always joked about Nola, like when you pitch Friday nights at LSU, you're built for the big leagues.
No doubt.
You've already pitched at the highest level, at the collegiate rank. So you're built for this. So I've always been right with you. Borderline 1, depending on your staff, but probably a better 2. And if he is your 2, you probably have a better rotation. But I agree with the poll. I think he has a bounce back. I love Brian Price as a pitching coach. Yep. I obviously didn't work out as a head coach, but tough place to try to do it in Cincinnati right now. So, but in terms of his knowledge and some old school baseball, and I think that's what we were so excited about with the start of Phillies baseball this year was Joe Girardi here, yep. Brian Price here. We got baseball guys back, and nothing against Kapler. I wasn't a Kapler guy. That's fine, but just to get old school baseball back, and from being a former player that the day to day is so important, and guys are so superstitious. So when you're a guy in a lineup and you're used to batting 3, and one day you come to the lineup, you're 7th, you're 2nd, and then bullpen guys, and your thought on this, Pat, where, hey, I'm an 8th inning guy, I've been an 8th inning guy my whole life, but now I'm coming in the 6th, now I'm coming in the 7th different times. Yeah. How does that affect you mentally as a ball player?
I think you're hitting on something there that's really important, and it goes back to the relationship that coaches and players have. And to be able to trust when a manager or a coach has to make a difficult decision, to be able to have that level of trust where you have respect, there's credibility there, but the relational piece that Girardi brings, I think, is going to be a really important thing for that Philly clubhouse. And look, I knew Gabe as a player. I didn't know him as a coach or manager, so I can't really comment on what went wrong there. But I just know Joe. I've worked with Joe. We've done some stuff with him in the past when he was with the Yankees. He has a great respect for the relational side of the game. And that's that's really important when you're trying to build that culture in the clubhouse, when you're trying to build respect, when you're trying to build trust. Joe gets it. And that's one of the things when you're talking about making a player move or a roster move like that, the players are much more willing to accept it when that coach has a good relationship and a great amount of trust built in for them to be able to take a move like that. And for a lot of guys, they're afraid to make those moves. They don't want to tick off their star player, or they maybe have a guy that they've got to be a little more careful with, and they're afraid to make that move. And that's where that relational capacity that Girardi brings to the clubhouse, that's going to make a huge difference for the Phillies clubhouse this year. And those players know he's been there, he's done it, he proved himself as a player, proved himself as a manager. So he brings a great deal of credibility into the clubhouse.
And Pat, you kind of touched on that too, right at the end. How much of it, this was Gabe's first gig, do you think played into that whole thing? Even though, by all means, he seemed to have that relationship in the locker room, but he never really managed before. So now it's just kind of, it seems like from the outside, he's throwing darts against the wall to see what sticks.
Yeah, Greg, I think there's a lot to that, right? So, experience teaches you a lot of things. And one of the things it teaches you is the boldness to make tough decisions. And I don't know that was the issue with Gabe, but look, it's just different. When you're stepping into a situation and you're a little bit tepid or afraid to make a mistake, and there could have been some of that. And look, everybody knows that on the call, right, that Philadelphia is not the easiest place in the world to manage, to coach, to play, right? I mean, there's just some different expectation levels, and so you're stepping into kind of a hornet's nest. And I would just say for Gabe, it was a tough situation, man. He's coming into a difficult time. The team was down; they're trying to rebuild. Different expectations, but they're still, at the end of the day, people expect you to win. And I think that for Gabe, it was a really tough first managerial job. And look, I think he's going to get another shot. From what I understand, he's a good guy. He obviously understands the game. He'll be a great asset down the road, and I think he'll get another shot at some point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And pulling Aaron Nola in the fifth inning of start number one at a low pitch count didn't start off on the right foot.
Yeah, exactly. That's the decision making comes into play when you're in that hot seat, right? Every decision is going to get scrutinized, and sometimes you can do everything right in a game, and you make that one decision that didn't work out well, and that's the one everybody focuses on. So it's sometimes it's just a no-win situation.
No, absolutely. So Pat, you obviously were a first-round draft pick coming out of college. Was there any extra pressure that you put on yourself because of where you were drafted?
Greg, that's a good question. I looking back, I don't think I ever did. I mean, maybe subconsciously in the back of your mind, you kind of think I've got something to prove. I was a first round pick and I need to play to that. But I never really thought about that. I always went onto the field trying to do my best that day. I never did anything less than giving 100% effort. With the best attitude I could bring to the ballpark every day. That's just the way I was built. And so I never really thought about a lot of those extraneous things like, being a first round pick, I got to play up to it. It just never really entered my mind.
Yeah, it's one of those things when I don't think I think a fans put more stock into that whole number one draft pick you need to produce, because I mean in baseball, like you've seen it where guys come from obscurity, undrafted free agents wind up having big roles on championship teams that you would never expect. Look what happened with the Phillies on our 08 teams. Like half of the guys that weren't starters but were rotational players played so key factors into those teams. Even further back, like you go look at the 93 team, the one the team you looked at on. They had a band of guys that just wanted to win and were gritty. And that's one of the things that I guess, people in this town just are attracted to.
Yeah, Steve, there's no doubt. When you get the players together, nobody's talking about their draft status, I promise you. They could care less. Maybe the first day you walk into the clubhouse, if there's a first rounder that's acting like he's all that, you're going to get some heat in the clubhouse for sure. But other than that, I mean, it's really like you're talking about. It's the camaraderie you develop. It's the relationships you develop. It's the culture of the team that in terms of what guys wanting to win and put it out there every day. That's what you're focused on. And all the other stuff is really more for the fans to talk about than anything. But once you get inside the clubhouse, you get between the lines, none of that stuff matters.
Yes, sir. Now, when you look at this team, like moving forward, if the season is going to happen, do you think that they did enough as far as the pitching aspect to help this team make a run to wild card to possibly make a run at this?
Man, that's always the $1 million question, right? I mean, the talent I think is there. I still think it's going to be a bit of a rebuilding year. I think a great goal for this Philly team would be to finish, second or third in the division. I mean, it's a tough division to begin with. But again, I think it takes a little bit of time for Girardi to kind of get to know the players get to know him, his system. There's going to be some nuances there that he brings that he's going to want executed on. So I think you have that year where you consider, hey, we've got some talent, we got some young talent, and it's one of those years that you kind of expect, hey, this is a setup year. If these guys can come out of the gate, win some games early on, build some confidence. I mean, in baseball, you guys know, you never know, right? I mean, you can have a team that just comes out of nowhere and gets into the playoffs and they figure out how to win at the right time. But I do think for this team coming into this season, a really good goal would be, hey, let's finish in the top half of the division, really set the stage for next year. Because I still think there's a couple of spots they've got to strengthen up. And hey, look, you may have one of the young guys come up and play well and shine this year, and they figure out that this is the guy they're going to go with in the future. So, but I consider that, like, down here, the Texas Rangers, I think, are in the same spot. They've got this young kind of building situation, but for them to challenge to win a division, they're going to have a lot of things go right, and starting pitching for sure, both with the Phillies and as I look at the Rangers, the starters are really going to have to come through and play up to their capabilities. So, hey, we'll see. But it's going to be a really interesting situation here when this season starts up, hopefully July 4th, as we're being told, because it's going to be the teams that come out of the gate the fastest. And, who those guys have been working out, keeping things moving during this downtime.
Yeah, it's like the marathon days are over now. So now it's a sprint.
I think it's more down to take care of your business inside of your division and at least, win 2 or 3 or however you wind up playing that. You take care of business in your division, you'll be in the playoffs.
Yeah, it always comes down to that. It really does. But again, with this shortened season, I think there's a chance for some really crazy things to happen in 82 games. And you may get a young team, up and coming team like the Phillies that just get out of the gate quick, and it changes the whole dynamic of the division. So I think that's the beauty of what's going to happen here with true baseball fans are going to kind of love this format, because I think it gets back to, Tom, what you said. This is going to be a sprint, man. Right out of the gate, you fall 4 or 5 games behind first couple of weeks, you're probably, your season's done.
Yeah, right. I mean, and the Phillies over the last 2 years were a team that was pretty, I would say, a fast start team or a good start team. And their issues were the second half of the year, August, September, is where they collapsed. And maybe that's a good thing for this baseball team. That it isn't that marathon. They don't have the usual August, September in their head, and that maybe that's important to them a little bit. But my next question to you goes back a little bit, and it's about a little bit of a plunkgate that happened back in, I want to say, what was it? We were talking about 90. I keep messing that up that year. But back in 1990, I know you and Doc Gooden had a little plunk fest go on, and then there was a benches clearing brawl, and all I remember was Darryl Strawberry getting taken down by somebody. Do you remember who that was, and can you tell the family out there who?
Oh yeah, very, very clearly, Tom. That was Von Hayes. Man, he clotheslined Darryl Strawberry. If you remember the brawl back in '90, after things kind of got broken up, Doc kind of charged him. I tackled him. He got a little bit of a graze on my nose, but man, Dalton just wore his face out like before the benches could get there. And Darryl obviously was Gooden's Bobo back then, and when they pulled Gooden out of the pile, man, his face was pretty beat up, and so Darryl kept trying to start that fight. He was trying to get around to get to Dalton like 3 or 4 times. Well, the first time around the pile, I mean, he got like a sprint around the pile, and Von Hayes catches him out of the corner of his eye and sticks his arm out and clotheslines him. And you just see Strawberry's legs fly up over the pile. It was kind of a comical scene when it happened. But yeah, that was a crazy brawl. We definitely earned the Fighting Phils moniker well that night. We wore it well.
Yeah, Von Hayes took a lot of criticism in the city. I think he deserves some redemption for that one. So, for everybody listening, give Von Hayes some redemption. He deserves it.
Yeah, you got to have Von protected us, man. You have to.
Yeah.
And people have to forget Pat was protecting his teammates because of all the nonsense that started before that.
Yeah, that's really how it started with Gooden plunking a couple of our guys. I mean, you guys remember how that game started? We were hitting him pretty well, and Doc had the reputation he would throw inside to knock guys off the plate, but he wasn't necessarily didn't have a reputation of plunking guys. But he hit Tommy Herr after Crucky hit a home run, and then a couple of innings later, we were hitting him pretty hard again, and he was trying to come up and in on Dickie Thon. And you guys remember Dickie's story when he got hit in the eye, almost ruined his career. So he just anything that came up and into Dickie, man, he took offense to it. And he came back in the dugout, and he was pretty ticked off. And Fergosi looked down and said, "Hey, we're not wasting any pitches. He's coming up first next inning." So we took care of business. But again, it goes back to I wanted to send the message to Doc. Look, I don't know if you were trying to plunk our guys or not, but you just can't hit guys. We got to protect our guys as well.
Now, is that one of your favorite rivalries, the Phillies-Met rivalry?
Oh, that was the best, man. Always, Steve. Those games always felt like a playoff game. And, I mean, we were in Shea, and it was, I think the Mets fans just hate Phillies fans to begin with. But we would always have a great time even getting up for those games. It was so easy to get up for a game like that. When you go into that city, you walk on the field and people are throwing stuff at you, calling you everything they can think of, and you're in the bullpen warming up. And, I mean, they call my mom names I never heard before. It was crazy. But, it just got you got the adrenaline going early, and every one of those games, especially when the Mets, as well as they were playing in the early '90s, we just happened to be a thorn in their side, man. We would go in and take 2 or 3 a Shea almost every series, and those guys were so pissed off they absolutely hated us, and we just had fun with it. It was a great rivalry because they had some great talent, some great teams, and I always enjoyed and loved pitching against those guys.
I mean, it had to make it even sweeter when, a couple years go by from their championship team. We wound up stealing Dykstra away and all that. So I'm sure that made it even more interesting. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, no, it was fun. And, we got Roger McDowell from them too. Wally Backman came over. I mean, there's a few of those guys that I thought were like key guys in their clubhouse, really big culture guys for the Mets that we ended up getting on our team. And it was true. I mean, they brought kind of that piss and vinegar attitude, of kick butt, take names, let's get after it. And there was another brawl that occurred. I don't know if you guys remember when Greg Jeffries got plunked and Roger hit him. Roger just didn't like him, and they never got along even inside the Mets clubhouse. So Roger plunks him, and and Jeffries wasn't charging the mound. He was walking down first baseline, just chirping it at Roger, and Roger's like saying, "Come on, dude, let's go. If you want to go, let's go." And so the bench is cleared. There wasn't really much that went on, but I remember a couple of Mets standing behind the line, like at first baseline, and they were telling Roger, "Get his ass, Roger, get him." So even Greg's own teammates were wanting him to after. I'm thinking that's not a good situation when your own teammates want you to get your ass kicked.
Yeah, go get him. Go get him.
Yeah.
I mean, but if you look at it, if you look at all the rivalries in Philadelphia sports, it's the one that's not questioned. It's not. You have questions where the Eagles fans will go back and forth between the Giants and Cowboys. There is no question when it comes to Phillies baseball. Our rival is the New York Mets.
No doubt, man. Hey, we used to have fun as players just watching the fights in the stands because by the 6th inning when the beer was flowing, man, there were some knockout dragouts in the stands. Both stadiums, right? It was fun to watch.
You all heard stories from the vets. You've been talking about stuff that's happened at Shea. Is there anything like the fans don't really know about it? You just it's one of those things that you just like how did that just happen? We have a lot of that because our fans are a little out there.
Yeah, I mean there were some crazy things that we would see in Veteran Stadium, and probably some not so family friendly stuff we can talk about. But the kind of the worst part I thought. And I know they cleaned this up after I left the Phillies in the mid-'90s, but When folks would jump out of the stands or on the field and those security guards would tackle, and usually it's just drunk college guys, right? And they would take these guys in the tunnel and just beat the snot out of them. And I'm like thinking, man, that's not good. These guys are just trying to have fun, come to the ballpark, and maybe some of those kids took it as a rite of passage where they walked out there with their face all bumped up because the security guard said to them.
Remember, after the Phillies won the World Series in 08, it was like almost a regular thing. Almost every month, some idiot was getting tasered or tackled. It was like, oh man, can we go back to normalcy?
Yeah. And then they had the jail underneath the stadium. That was a real thing. So that was kind of crazy stuff. But no, but I love it. Yeah. The one thing about Phillies fans, I always tell people, especially here in Texas that don't know any better, say, man, they're the most loyal fans in the world, and they are not front runners. Philly fans go to the games. They're going to love you. They're going to boo you, but they're showing up.
No, that's for sure.
And it doesn't matter if we're going to follow you and give you the nonsense stuff.
I think it's the greatest compliment you can give us as Phillies fans, honestly. Is that, we're not front runners. We go, we're loyal, we stick by, we call it, we try to, well, most of it, some of us are idiots, but for the majority of us smart, we try to call it like we see it. And, I think players respect it. I think we've gotten better. I think we've grown up a little bit as time's going on here, a tad, but still, we're aggressive, we're animals, we'll boo you. And we were trying to stop that when Bryce Harper came here early on because he was getting booed day one. And like, we got this guy for 13 years. I don't think we want to start this relationship off with booed.
Yeah, no doubt. I remember some of that with with Schmidt's career. Mike Schmidt and I didn't see a whole lot of it, but I always heard that even at times he would get booed. I'm like, how in the world do you boo that guy? But hey, look, it's a tough crowd, but the expectations are so high, and look, I'll tell you, deep down, players actually love that. They thrive on that. And getting booed at home was never an issue for me because if I stunk, I didn't care that people wanted to acknowledge that. In fact, I was way okay with it because it just motivated me to come back and work harder that next week and make sure that next start was better.
Well, now, as you go into this next part, we're talking about the fans and all that. What are your thoughts on basically, proposals of emptyless games, regardless if we're talking about baseball, football, hockey, baseball, whatever? Empty stands for sporting events.
Yeah, Steve, I hate it, man. When this whole pandemic thing started and we started getting these closed down orders, I just thought, what the heck are we doing? And when gosh, this will get me started on some political conversation, which I don't want to go down, but I just think it was a freaking crazy mess to shut the entire nation down, especially for as long as we have, and to take pro sports away. We knew who this pandemic was going to affect, and it was the older populations, especially folks that were 70 years old plus that had medical conditions. So why in the world did we do what we did? I don't know. I can't answer that. I'm not a politician. Don't ever want to be, but yeah, stupid stuff. So I think coming back and they're talking about the stadiums being empty, and I heard Mark Cuban's deal the other night, and I just totally disagree with where Cuban's coming from on this. Look, the players are going to be fine. They're going to get tested every couple of days. The fans, if you do it right, you should let a number of fans come into the stadiums. I've been grocery shopping this whole time through this whole thing, and people are wearing masks. They're staying away from each other, doing the distancing thing, and we're in supermarkets, 4, 5, 6 feet away from each other. Why can't we be in stadiums doing the same thing? So that stuff doesn't make any sense to me. I think it's a travesty to the game to not allow fans to go. I know people in our area, they can't wait to get outside and go watch some sports, man. So I'm with you on it. I think it's ridiculous. It's a stupid rule. I think it's politically motivated. Doesn't make any sense. And man, I just can't wait till they come to their senses and start letting people back into the ballparks.
Yeah, like if we can have restaurants at 25% capacity or 50% capacity, whatever the case may be, why can't we have ballparks at 25% capacity? For players, they need that. I understand a lot of players will say, "Hey, I'm just going to go play baseball no matter what," and the internal motivation will get you rolling. But I still think it's going to be so hard for a lot of guys right away. It's going to be such an adjustment that not have any noise, nothing at all. And I agree with you. I think 25% or whatever the percentage is that you should allow in ballparks, at least early on, and then gauge it from there. But, I agree with you. If we can go in supermarkets and we can go A, B, C, and D with large groups, why can't we spread out at in an open baseball stadium.
Right.
You know, I mean, some of the dome places, maybe I get a little bit, I guess. But in terms of the open ballparks, let's go. You know, I don't.
Yeah, exactly right. It's going to affect the game. Look, I mean, there's no player that plans going to tell you that that's not going to affect how they approach the game, how they get up for it. You know, hearing the crowd noise, all that. It absolutely will affect the game. It's going to feel like a kind of a glorified inter-squad game is what it's going to feel like. You know, with no fans in the stands.
Yeah, working on the backfield, working on going over stuff on the backfield of the spring training complex with no one around.
Exactly.
So, Pat, I just want to go back. 92 obviously didn't seem like it was the best of the year personally, for you. But was there any inkling in that locker room that 93 might be right around the corner with that team? Like, was there a spark there? Was there any type of inkling that, hey, maybe – we're a piece away or whatever, that 93 obviously happened, but that it could happen?
Thanks, Craig. You stole the question.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I will say this, 92, it was a tough year, but I think we all felt like there was the foundations for something great were there. And we had great talent. The pitching staff still needed to add a couple of pieces, and especially on the back end with the bullpen. But we felt like we were getting close. And then 93 happens, and I'll say this about 93. It was, when I look back on it, it was just a magical year where everything came together. And sometimes it's hard to explain because you go year to year with sometimes the main core group of guys. And you may add one piece, you may add a couple of pieces, and all of a sudden that team goes from mediocrity to a championship caliber team. Some of that's hard to explain. I'll tell you with the Phillies, the leadership inside the clubhouse was always there. Dutch kind of ran that clubhouse. And I think what had to happen, though, is that Dutch needed some help. He needed a couple more guys to kind of come along that just wouldn't take losses easy. That would take things personally and do something about it. And I think when you added Dykstra, you had Kruk to a certain extent. He wasn't as vocal, but he was that blue collar type guy. The team just started to feed off of that. And then when the pitching started to come around, and of course Curt just got on his roll, and then the bullpen was better. And then we had a couple of guys come up during the season that really added to things. I mean, it really was a magical year.
Stocking coming up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was a couple of young guys that came in and filled some gaps that you really didn't expect much from, and they just kind of got hot at the right time. So yeah, all that had to take place. It was really kind of fun to watch all the pieces come together.
Yeah, the platoon with Eisenreich and Incaviglia, I think, was probably one of the underrated things that really helped propel that 93 team to where they were on top of what they already had.
Yeah, no doubt. And both of those players who, veteran guys that really could have made a case to say, hey, I should be the full-time starter. And both those guys had the perfect attitude of, hey, there's certain nights I know when I'm going to get the call and I'm going to be in there and called upon to win a game for us. And Izzy was just an awesome teammate, just so humble, approached the game right, worked his tail off and just kind of, I think, set in motion that the idea that every player, every role is important. And especially when at the right times in the games, when those guys would come through. And again, it just seemed like, everything fell into place and the management made right decisions. The coaches made right decisions. The players pulled it together.
Speaking of 93, we have a question coming in from Mike Chromiak. Do you think Curt Schilling is overdue for the Hall of Fame?
Man, that's a great question. I do. I think Curt earned his way as a player, and I think we all pretty much recognize maybe some of the politics behind why he's not getting more consideration, and that's unfortunate because I think Curt definitely deserves it as a player. Say what you want about him being a loudmouth and not knowing when to be quiet. But look, I love the guy. He's a competitor. I mean, he did a lot of things for the Phillies that helped us to get into the World Series and win the World Series. I mean, he just did it all. So I think if you boil it down to the player of who Curt Schilling is, he definitely deserves to be in the Hall.
You're saying Curt now. A lot of people have been very vocal about Pete continuing to be blackballed for all these years. With all the stuff that's going on, with steroids and stuff like that is going on in baseball, and some of these guys, have gotten into the Hall of Fame. And Pete's stance has been his stance for over the years. A lot of people still feel the initial suspension, he made a mistake. He should have never agreed to it, and kind of put him in this situation where he is now. Do you think like guys like him should it's kind of you paid your dues, you made your punishment. It's time to allow one of the greatest hitters of the last 40 years into the Hall of Fame where he belongs?
Yeah, again, tough question, right? I mean, I think Pete deserves consideration now. I think he has paid his dues. I think he's learned. Has he fully made retribution for what he did? I don't know what else he could do. It's one of those things where, again, you recognize a player that should be in there because of the way he played the game and personified it for his era. I mean, he was, Mr. Hustle and did everything right as a player. So, yeah, it's a tough call. I get it. I get some of the guys that are still hung up on the whole cheating thing and, especially betting on your own team. But then you look at, well, at what point do you say he has come to the table, he has acknowledged it, and hey, he's forgiven. Let's move on. Let's recognize him for the player that he is and that he was. Yep.
Yeah, so fair. I mean, listen, we all understand when you talk about the likes of Barry Bonds, you talk about Sosa, McGuire, they were great players regardless of the steroid use, in my opinion. I think Bonds would have been a top 5 player of all time, maybe, without steroids. It just so happened that I always thought that he felt like he had to keep up with them too. But you look at guys like that who were going to deserve to be in. And like you said, Pete, how long are you going to leave the guy out for? I mean, he said what he had to say about it. He's one of the greatest hitters of all time, if not the best hitter of all time. Him and Tony are right there. Let the guy in. Let the guy in. It's not saying that it's okay to bet on baseball, but he's betting on his own team. So if you're betting on your own team to win, well, how bad is it? Now we don't know if he ever bet on to lose. We don't know, but
right.
If you bet on the win, who cares? They're betting on the win.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, Tom. I would, and I've said this plenty of times to people who've asked me over the years. I said, look, our role is not to play God. We're not voting these guys into heaven, right? We're recognizing them for the players that they are. And look, I can promise you there's guys in the Hall of Fame that did some worse things than Pete Rose or anybody else you want to throw in that mix. And so I've got to the point in my life where I'm like, you know what, there's a lot to be said about grace and forgiveness. And I want to recognize somebody for what they did on the field. And for Pete Rose, Barry Bonds, look, I played with guys that I think could have made better decisions about what they did with their bodies back in the 90s. There is no doubt. And I think they've all paid a price for that, physically, mentally. I think some guys even, unfortunately for Dutch in that situation, I don't know what caused his cancer, but look, when you pump your body with chemicals, you're exposing yourself to those risks. So, but look, they all paid a price for that stuff. And let's recognize baseball for what it is at that particular time period, that era, and say, look, did Pete do everything right? Heck no, he didn't. But he is a Hall of Fame player. Curt Schilling, to me, is a Hall of Fame player. Let's recognize these guys for the talents and the things that they did on the field and not put so much, I don't know, playing God in certain respects with some of these writers. That stuff just ticks me off. And if you knew some of these writers, you'd think they shouldn't even have a vote. Some of these guys just need to go home and not have a vote.
Thank you.
Well, because so much is agenda based, Pat. So much is agenda based, and being in the media and trying to create something that doesn't have an agenda behind it. These voters, if you don't give them an interview, if you don't give them what they want, at times they hold grudges. And for guys that have been writing for 30, 40 years, I mean, they hold grudges over guys because they didn't get the access they needed or whatever the case they made. That shouldn't be the be-all, end-all of these guys getting into the Hall of Fame based on, I hate to say, but based on nerds.
Yeah.
Based on nerds voting in guys who played the game.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the Paul Hagans of the world are long gone, unfortunately. I love Paul, and there's a guy down here in Texas, Kevin Sherrington. I mean, those guys are fair-minded. When things need to be written critically, they wrote it critically, but they weren't out to personalize it. They weren't trying to hurt somebody. And you're right. A lot of these guys, that's they're trying to create these controversies and personalized stuff, and it doesn't serve the game well. It doesn't serve the industry well, really.
Yeah, Mike Kromiak says Ty Cobb was an awful human being, and he's in. So you feel like that. I know Andy, who's down in Houston, has a non-sports question, and I'm going to get it's Bucci's, right? Is that how you say it? Is that right?
Buc-ee's.
Buc-ee's? I have no idea how to say that. Or Wawa. So that's the question.
Oh man, Andy knows my answer to this, because if you're anywhere in the South and you go to a Buc-ee's, it changes your life. It's just a life-changing deal, man. Look, Wawa was great when I had it, but yeah, Buc-ee's it's crazy good, man.
Well, the South now hates me because I can put that.
Is that Buc-ee's?
Yeah, it's like these mega gas station stores. Like it looks like a Walmart when you walk in. It's crazy. But if you guys ever make it to Texas, I will take you to a Buc-ee's, and I will buy you one of the best barbecue sandwiches you ever laid your mouth into.
Let's go.
I'm in.
Make that.
It's crazy, man. I mean, the food's great. The bathrooms are unbelievably clean. It's a bomb. It's awesome.
Now, I wanted to get one into you. You played with some interesting players and stuff like that. Who was the one hitter that you always wanted to go up against, and you always, I need to get this guy out. I need to get him out.
Oh man, there's a ton of them. I tell you, the guy I really enjoyed pitching against just because I owned him and he hated it. And the pretty cool part of it was he would invite me to his celebrity golf tournament every year. I think just out of the respect, I don't know, maybe he just wanted to curse me under his breath, but Craig Biggio with the Astros, and Craig's a great guy, and I got to watch him. He played in Seton Hall. Got drafted by the Astros. He moved his position around. I mean, he's a spectacular player in so many respects. But I just had his number. Yeah, I mean, it was comical. And I think he must have been like 0 for 20 off me in his career. And I was pitching down in the old Astrodome against the Astros, and I think he was 0 for 3. I struck him out a couple times. And he pops the ball up in the infield, and he didn't even go to first base. He ran straight to the dugout with his bat, and you could hear him in the tunnel, just going off in the tunnel. And then you heard kind of some commotion in the Astros dugout. He had taken his bat, hit the toilet just outside the dugout, and busted it, and water was going everywhere all over the dugout. And he had to stop the game. I was laughing so hard, I was just going, "Oh my gosh, he just killed the toilet." It was fun, but we had a great time. So yeah, I think of Craig. I always loved pitching against the Mets. I mean, I just really enjoyed those matchups. So Kevin McReynolds and Strawman and Greg Jeffries. I mean, that was a great lineup. Really tough lineup.
Pat, who was your favorite teammate? I think I already know the answer, but I'm curious.
Well, the name might surprise you because he didn't have a long Phillies career. So I love John Kruk. John and I always got along great. And, Dale Murphy, when we got Dale in a trade, Dale and I had a lot of talks about stuff, about life, and so I love talking to Dale. Jason Grimsley was my buddy coming up. We spent some time in the minors together, and Jason is certifiably crazy. He would tell you that himself, but I just love the guy. I love the guy. And, I don't know if you guys remember, September of '89, he's pitching in Chicago, and I think he set the modern day record for wild pitches in one inning. I think he had 3 in one inning. And but he lived life like that. He was a wild man, still is. God love his wife. Dana's going to have like 20 mansions in heaven for putting up with him and staying married in this life. But I love Jason, man. He's my buddy.
Jason Grimsley, that's a name from the past for sure.
Yeah, I wasn't on that one. I thought I had it, but I wasn't right.
Hey, dude, I thought it was. Hey, man, I just thought that pitcher catching relationship. I was going Dutch all the way.
Yeah, Dutch and I, we had a great time together. Not another name, Don Carmen. Don kind of took me under his wing when I got up to the Phillies, and he left right after I got there. But Don and I have stayed in touch, for a long time. So, but yeah, I've had some great teammates. Dutch and I, it was really a cool story. I'll tell you real quick. We were in Montreal, and my second big league start, and Dutch would say things to me, I think, to try to humble me a little bit. I probably needed that. But we were in Montreal, and bases loaded in the second inning, and a catcher comes up. I think it was Hector Villanueva, and Dutch gives me a fastball away, and I shook him. Gave me a fastball away again. I shook him again. And I'm saying, I'm hoping he doesn't give me a fastball away again. And he did. And I shook him. And he rips off that mask. He comes out to the mound, and he's in my grill. Again, things I can't say, in a family channel here. But he lit into me. And I said, Dutch, listen, I know this guy. I've pitched against him. I know how to get him out. I want to start him soft, throw a changeup first and then go cutter in. I'm going to stay inside on him because I can get inside with the cutter. And he just looked at me like, are you freaking kidding me? I'm like, no, Dutch, I'm telling you, this is how I'm going to get the guy out. He says, all right, look, bases loaded, 1 out. You screw this up, it's on you, man. It's on you. So he turns around and walks away, right? And then I'm sitting there behind the mound going, crap, I hope I don't screw this up. And I just got up there. I knew how to execute on a first pitch changeup. I started it, middle of the plate, let it sink down and away, and he swings right through it, right over the top of it. And you get you set up a hitter like that where you start something soft and you're going away from him. Typically, they're going to be looking away. They think that's the pitch you want to try to get them out with. Next pitch, I threw a cutter, and it started probably third of the plate. Caught a third of the plate, came in, broke his bat. He hits a ground ball back to me. I flip it to Dutch to first base, double play. We're out of the inning, and that was kind of like that christening. Like now you're a big leaguer, right? Now you went through a test. And I remember walking off the field and Dutch looking at me just saying, okay, all right, buddy. Now you got it, man. You got it. All right. So that to me, that was great leadership. He could be tough. He could be hard on especially on younger guys. But that was the way Dutch tried to build guys up. He wanted you to go through that adversity early because he knew that adversity was going to make you a better player. And he would challenge you and get in your grill like that. And that's what I love Dutch about. I mean, that's the way he played the game. He carried himself that way. And, I don't think he got recognized nearly enough for kind of some of the quiet things he did inside that clubhouse. So
I want to transition into a little bit what's happening now. And over the last couple of weeks, Blake Snell came out and had some takes on what's going on right now with the new CBA they're trying to put together to get this half a season up and rocking. And Bryce Harper comes out, defends his comments. But really, the only thing that rubbed me the wrong way with Blake was just the fact that he said, I want mine. And I think he just said it the wrong way. I don't think that's really the direction he was going. But just some of your thoughts. I've heard different things. I've heard 50-50 revenue split. Then talking to Snell a little bit, it was more like 25% that the players were getting and the owners were getting 75%. So, and I also want your opinion of the new CBA coming up in the wintertime. And players' fears that if they sign this deal, it leads into a revenue split and a salary cap moving forward.
Yeah, I really, Tom, I think it's a great question, by the way. I think it's two separate answers, though, because I don't think what they do right here today is going to have any bearing on the CBA going forward. I mean, two totally separate decisions that have to be made. The decision today is obviously how do the players get properly compensated according to what the season is going to look like, and of course all the lost revenue that we've seen happen. And look, as we've talked about before, Snell, obviously, I think if you ask Blake today, he would say, he'd be the first to tell you, I should have said it differently. I shouldn't have said it that way. Because part of this is the PR war. I was in the 1990-91 CBA discussions. I got to go to New York and sit on some of those things, and most of what goes on behind the doors, it comes out in the public, and it's something is said completely different from what went on behind the door. It's a PR battle. The owners are trying to win favor with the public. Players are trying to get what they can. So you have to take all that into effect. And I think what the players, it's okay for them to stick to their guns and say, look, we signed contracts. Let's just pay according to on a pro rata share our contract. The owners are going to push back and say, look, we don't have ticket revenue. If we don't let the fans in, we're going to have television revenue, but they've got to look at their books and try to figure out how to make it all work too. And I think a good sign of that is the furloughs and people that are inside the club and the management teams that are having to, leave their jobs for a period of time. I mean, teams are hurt. There's no doubt. So I think there has to be a recognition on both sides. What's the best way to make this work financially? And let's get to the offseason where we can talk about the new CBA going forward. Because, look, this is a massive reset. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We could go through another pandemic, and how do you go through that again and keep sports going? So I think it's a time for players and for management to both say, hey, what's the best way to make this work? The problem is the owners have always said this word partnership. We want to partner with the players. The players go to the table and say, hey, we're willing to partner. Let's see the books. And then the owners will not open their books. So I don't know how you have a partnership in business when you don't know what the other guy is bringing in and what his expenses are. And they don't want to share that for all good reasons, and most of it's for tax purposes. These guys have a way to manipulate, leases and sponsorship deals and stuff that benefit them tax-wise. So I get it. I wouldn't open my books either. But you can't go to the table and say we want to be partners with you and then not share the information you need to write a good partnership up.
Do you think it gets done, Pat? Do you think there is baseball in July?
I do. Yeah, I think so. And I think I think back to 1991. We went through that with 9/11, and the country needs sports. I mean, I know how I feel sitting here on weekends not having anything to watch, but maybe a NASCAR deal. That gets kind of old after the second lap. So I'm like going, how do we not bring these guys back?
Fighting.
Hey, I actually watched the Darlington race last night. It was pretty fun 2 nights ago. But
It gives us something.
oh yeah, it's the only thing to watch, right? It's like the NFL draft. I mean, I was glued to the draft. I never watched the draft, but I was glued to it. But look, the country needs it. I think most everybody recognizes it. That's in their sane mind, that understands the importance of sports and what it does for our country. So it's going to happen. I think it's just a matter of how it's going to look when they get back.
Pat, is this fair to say that when you talk about the youth sports side of stuff, and just to talk about travel baseball, summertime baseball, that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Does pro baseball, and it's not up to them, but do they sort of need to set the precedent of starting to play first for now everything underneath to start feeling comfortable? And I'm not putting it on them because it's not their job to make everybody else feel comfortable, but just how everybody looks at pro sports and everybody wants to go off of what pro sports are doing. And what they implement safety-wise is more of my question. Like that the youth sports and all work its way down, the collegiate level all the way down, sort of can go off of what big business is doing?
Yeah, I think. Hey, listen, we both coach youth sports. We both enjoy the select stuff. It's great for the kids and it's great competition. We're actually starting in Texas May 31st. We can hit the fields with the kids and start practicing. June 15th, we can start playing games again. I wish Major League Baseball would have led, and it looks like the NBA is going to try to salvage some part of their season, NHL possibly. But I wish Major League Baseball would have led and said, hey, look, we play in open air stadiums. We can come back and make it safe for the players, make it safe for the fans, get people back in the ballparks. I wish they'd made that decision 20, 30 days ago, because I think we could have had baseball before July 4th. Now, look, I get it. I understand there's a lot of risks out there. Even the players were talking about the risks of coming back too early. So I understand that. But, youth sports is going to come back before the pro sports. And I think one of the things we've recognized is for this country to function properly, I mean, having kids out of school for 3 months and people sit at home trying to do their jobs at home and fighting, the dogs and the kids, I mean, it's been a massive reset for everybody, but especially in youth sports, with the kids not having spring sports, man, kids they want to run around. They want to play games and stuff. And so I think we're going to look back on this, and we're learning a lot right now, but we're going to look back at this and go, man, why did we shut down all phases of society when we could have kept at least sports going and the kids' activities going and things like that? Because they're, even if they would have caught the virus, I mean, there hasn't been any deaths for kids, or maybe 1 or 2, but kids that had issues. But I think we're going to look back on this thing and go, man, we should not have done that. That was a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, I know how it's affecting the kids. You know how it's affecting the kids, Pat, and it's tough on them. And it's tough on not knowing what's next for all of them, and that's the toughest part of it. And we couldn't, being that when this all happened, up north, we were working our way outside.
Yeah.
So we were working our way outside of facilities, and we were about to get on fields. And again, if we had, hey, you want to shut it for a couple weeks and figure out, a plan, fine. You know what I mean? Then figure out a plan. But
right.
All the plans I'm seeing up in Jersey are like way too much. There's ways to social distance. There's ways to use, a team brings their own baseballs. All that stuff's fine. But they have it like to the point where it's just way too many like rules when it's just social distance. Let's play baseball. We'll be all right. In terms of getting these kids out there, letting them play, especially on a sport that's not a contact sport, essentially.
Right.
Like to slide in the second or stuff like that. So not a contact sport where, we were talking about the umpire side. Hey, go behind the pitcher. Umpires don't have to go behind the plate. We'll understand as coaches how that's going to work and give them a break and all that stuff. But because we all just want to be out there, and we all miss it from players to coaches all the way up. And I completely agree. I mean, I wish Major League Baseball would have led with it. They didn't. I always thought it was going to be sort of the NBA to lead with it since they shut down first. So we'll see which one comes back. But yeah, I mean, down there, it seems like U Sports are taking sort of the steps, and maybe big league sports sort of go off of what U Sports do.
Well, I think you raised some great points. There's going to be a lot of innovation, right? I think that's the one thing that this pandemic has taught us. We're going to think differently. We're going to do things differently. Play games differently. I look at college baseball now. There was just a report out that they're now looking at trying to do what a lot of us have been saying for a long time. College baseball starts too early in February. Most of the northern teams can't even play, for crying out loud. So, for colleges to look at, hey, how do we turn baseball even into a revenue sport? There's going to be a movement here that's going to move college baseball back to probably a late March start and take the College World Series into July. I love that idea. I think incredible. Yeah, and I think the fans are going to flock to college baseball, and baseball in college has a chance to become a revenue-producing sport, which it never has been. But a lot of that's been because of the time they start the year. They're battling with March Madness. And, I mean, this is there's going to be a lot of different things that change here from here on out. And I think we have a chance not to go back to normal. We got a chance to go back to better. What is it going to look like to do things better going forward?
Agreed.
No, absolutely. I look back at the West Virginia coach. He went on that rant, same thing, Pat, about changing the time of the year. And he's like, who wants to come watch West Virginia Pitt at either West Virginia or Pitt in February? Nobody.
Right. Yeah, and Randy no doubt, Craig. And Randy Mazey, the coach at West Virginia, he came up through the ranks in Texas, was played at Clemson, came to TCU, was on Coach Schlossnagel's staff at TCU, got the West Virginia job. Randy Mazey's been on this for 10 years, and he's been absolutely correct and right. But there had to be a catalyst that caused the move because they had to get college presidents to finally take a look at it. See, it's the coaches. I think the majority of coaches want to do it. They had to get the college presidents to agree to vote on it, and they didn't want to change it. I mean, these guys just sit back in their towers and don't want to change anything for the benefit of the game because baseball is a non-revenue producing sport. Well, guys, look at the idea of making it a revenue producer. I mean, if you just would go forward and do these things, it's going to help all these colleges. And God forbid we see any more teams, take away baseball. Bowling Green, Furman. I mean, that's what you're going to see. You're going to see more of that because they just can't afford to play all these different sports.
One more name for you. What was it like playing for Mickey Sullivan at Baylor?
Oh man, Mick was great. Yeah, God rest his soul. He was a really good man, really great coach. I transferred from Rice University to Baylor after my freshman season, and Mickey brought on a pitching coach named Sid Hudson. Sid had played for the old Washington Senators and then was a scout when they moved to Texas. Sid scouted for 40 years. Mickey told me when I was getting ready to make that decision on where to go next, he said, look, I'm bringing Sid Hudson in. Sid Hudson will change your career. He'll change your career path and get you to the big leagues. And Mickey spoke the truth. I mean, he and Sid did wonders for me in my baseball career. So, yeah, I love that guy and just a tremendous coach, again, who really made an effort to understand his players and to meet guys where they were.
Amen. You have to have those type of people when you're kind of building yourself up as an athlete. You have to have people that put you in the right direction. It's one of the things I think that some people don't really realize about sports, that if you don't have that strong person to kind of help build you up, even as they're tearing you down, you're not going to make it.
Yeah, no doubt, Steve. That to me, that's the beauty of any game that we play, right? It's the relationships, and the relationships that for some of us have lasted a lifetime. I've got coaches, mentors, guys that I played with that are lifelong friends. And I'm so thankful that God allowed me to play the game as long as I did. I wish I could have played longer. Wish I wouldn't have had injuries. But, man, the relationships I've made as a professional player, college player, now coaching, select baseball in the summers. I mean, these are things that the game has given to me that I'm so thankful about. And again, thanks for you guys. Thanks for bringing me on. And if you ever need somebody to come on again, I'd be glad to do it. Really enjoyed talking with you guys today.
Yeah, Pat. Can't thank you enough for taking the time and coming on with us.
Yeah, appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. Have a good one, Pat.
Take care,
Thanks,
man.
Pat. Everybody, that was Pat Coombs on with us.
Yes,
If
sir.
you just joined us, you can go back and listen on any of our podcast places or any of our social platforms. The show stays there. It doesn't go anywhere, so you can always find us. Listen, man, I mean, you want to talk about some great insight, when you go back to them Phillies teams of the 90s. And it was funny Greg asked that question because that was the question that first hit me was, did you feel that in 92 sort of happening? And he talked about the toughness of them guys and the piss and vinegar that they played with and how important Dutch was to all of them as a leader and a guy can get in your face and keep it real. And man, it's unbelievable. And he talked about his son, obviously single A for the Marlins. We ran out of time there, but was going to ask him a little bit about him and his development. But we also know Pat's coaches select teams down south as well in Texas, so that's cool. And then everything he's still doing for athletes today. So it's really cool. It's great to have him on. And then he does some stuff for, obviously, Fox College Baseball. We didn't get to see that this year, but hopefully next year we get to see that. And in the insight of not knowing, I didn't know that college baseball was trying to move the World Series to July. Nobody knew that. So, I mean, that's amazing insight. And then again, these guys, these higher-ups that want to not change anything for the better, and that's why you're losing programs. Well, one, the pandemic's not helping, but you're going to lose programs. Listen, college baseball could be big if they wanted it to. It could be big or big enough. Big enough. That's all.
It could at least be big enough to sustain themselves, right? Everybody, most of these schools use basketball.
The World Series does so well, but college baseball can't.
Yeah. No, you're right. And most of these schools use their other, their big time sports, football and basketball, to pay for all the other secondary sports. So, yeah, I mean, moving that to a more prime time, time of the year where more fans can come out, you're getting more of the high school kids in certain areas that are able to come out and watch games as opposed to being in the middle of, February where, all our schools up here in North are down in Florida anyway, and it's just, some of these schools that have these stadiums can actually play in their stadiums during times where they can generate revenue. I've heard the rumor out there a couple times. I just think Pat's right in a sense that they just needed something to push them over the edge. Hopefully that's this, because then hopefully more revenue allows for more scholarships and some of these kids, especially Tom, that we're directly, have relationship with and we're directly, trying to help out can get to where they want to be at the next level.
Yep. All right, boys. Well, great show. We got more interviews coming up. Next week, we'll have a little San Diego Chargers guest on for you next Friday at 2:00. That's all I'm going to tell you. You got to wait for the image to come out. Little tease. I know the rest of them guys got some more guys coming up, and we have a lot of other names that we're working on as well, family. So stay with us. Stay tuned. Keep your alerts on. Like, subscribe, follow. This is just the beginning of all the interviews. If you missed it last night, Ken Shamrock on with the guys from Lazy Booking / In This Very Ring. Phenomenal interview, about an hour and 20 minutes of Ken Shamrock. So cool. And I'm not even like a big UFC, WWE guy. You guys know this. But I listened to the entire thing because he's just such a great entertainer, such a great talker, and it just had me. And so cool. So it's surreal.
I love the jean shorts and the keys on the belt loop. I loved it. It was so classic Ken Shamrock. Just so old school.
I just want to thank all these. Yeah, I just want to thank all these athletes, former athletes, guys still in the business, whatever you're doing. I appreciate your guys' time for joining us. It means so much to us, and it really is surreal when you think about, like we were talking about. You think about 5 years ago, when it's got rocking, that we'll be talking to some of the people all the people we've been talking to, not some of them, all the people we've been talking to. It's nonstop. Only more to come, fam. So like I said, put your alerts, like, subscribe. Tomorrow you have the weekly roundup. I don't know what time. I would love to tell you 2 o'clock. I don't know, maybe 6. I had no idea. But you can catch Steve Ricell and Jake Friel. Is the weekly roundup tomorrow?
Oh yeah, and we got Brian Kelly, UFC bantamweight, fresh off his knockout last week. So
huge win last week. Huge win.
Brother. Oh, you guys got it? I didn't even know you guys got him. See, I didn't even know. I went to you on that one. Awesome. I won't be on with the boys tomorrow, but catch Steve, Jake, and another special guest. Family, thanks for joining us. Brian Daly, I'm not telling you. San Diego Charger. That's all I'm telling you. Next Friday, 2 o'clock.
It's Junior Seau.
Stop it.
Not
Stop
Junior. All right, fam. We out. Thank you, Dr. Paul Bedell, Specialized Physical Therapy, LLC, Burlington, Cherry Hill, Princeton locations, and Buck Services, AMBUCK Services.com, 20% off. Gutters, gutter guards, deck restoration, everything outside, they got you covered, fam. For Tom Arnone, Greg Moakovic, Steve Reichel, and our special guest, Pat Combs. Can't thank you enough. Keep your alerts on, peeps. Stay safe. We out.